Welcome to the Empire Builders Podcast, teaching business owners the not-so-secret techniques that took famous businesses from mom and pop to major brands. Stephen Semple is a marketing consultant, story collector, and storyteller. I'm Stephen's sidekick and business partner, Dave Young. Before we get into today's episode, a word from our sponsor, which is, well, it's us. But we're highlighting ads we've written and produced for our clients. So here's one of those.
Why can't I ever find my people?
You can now when you boop.
Boop?
Boop. And you'll beep your crew nationwide with Peak Push to Talk.
Booping is back?
A boop and you're instantly talking to your crew. It's Peak Push to Talk.
No more texting? No more it was on silent? No more never returned calls?
Nope. Just boop.
Boop.
Push to Talk from peakptt.com. Boop.
Stephen, my notes say HBO today. Are we going to watch something or are we going to talk?
That'd be probably more interesting. let's put on some of the Sopranos. And
I haven't watched the Sopranos in ages. Let's do it.
For a little bit of Curb Your Enthusiasm.
There we go. Yeah. There's so many we could pick from.
I mean, HBO is crazy. No one's won more Emmys than them. Like I was looking at it this year. This year, they're down. This year, they're a little disappointed because they've only got 107 Emmy nominations. Last year, 137. Like the next leader is like 40. The number of Emmy nominations that they get year in and year out is just crazy. But the thing everybody forgets about HBO, though, is HBO also really dramatically changed the business of television. They were founded in 1972, and they really pioneered this idea of the modern pay for television. They were the first station to directly transmit and distribute to individual cable stations. So the first to make content and distribute it out to these cable stations. And it really became the blueprint for pay television that we use today. So they really, changed the industry. And, they've gone from 1972 to today. Today, they do $2 billion a year in revenue. They become a monster. But the thing I love about them is not just the changing of the business model, and we could do a whole thing talking about that, but a little bit about how HBO does things inside their four walls. And this is the lesson that we can learn. And we see this, like we see this portrayed in movies, where there's the pitch, right? And then there's the focus group and there's the committee that approves the show. And frankly, that's how most networks operate.
A bunch of studio executives sitting around going, second guessing their creative people.
Exactly. Here's what HBO does. The producers and the directors have complete 100% autonomy. There's no focus groups. There's no committees. And, we should put a link in this to our other partner, Mick Torbay's video on the committee.
Yeah.
That you should absolutely watch. It's amazing. It's fabulous. But here's the thing. Here's what their belief is. Their belief is if we go out and we hire the best producers, and we go out and we hire the best directors, and we go out and hire the best writers, they're going to produce great stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So why are we having a committee or a focus group, in other words, people who don't produce, don't write, and don't direct, determine what's good content?
Right.
You end up with Curb Your Enthusiasm and The Sopranos doing that. It's really interesting. We all do this whole thing of, well, you're the expert. I want to hire the expert, and then tell the expert what it is that they should or shouldn't do.
It reminds me a little bit of the Apple ad 1984. And people think of Steve Jobs as a great business icon, and he was, but he was a brilliant marketer, I think, first and foremost. And if you've ever watched the video of the focus group that people put together, they found a bunch of people that had never seen that ad, put them in a room, and then showed them the ad and said, hey, here's what we're thinking of running. And people tore it apart. They're like, well, this is the dumbest thing I've ever. And these were just, average consumers. I think the thing to remember is that half of the population is below average.
That ad, just for background for our listeners, many marketing experts believe it's one of the most effective ads that was ever written. And it was shown once in the Super Bowl. I actually remember seeing that ad in the Super Bowl and had this huge impact. The focus groups panned it. The board didn't want to run it. And here's the thing is, Jobs hired Ridley freaking Scott to produce that ad. Now, here's the thing. Ridley Scott was a television advertising producer before he became a movie producer. He did some of like, if you remember the really great Chanel ads, those were his in the day. Like the guy knew what he was doing. So he goes out and he hires them, and the focus group and the board all go, oh, we don't like this ad. It's stupid. And he says, screw all of you. We're fricking running it.
We're doing the HBO play here.
We're doing the HBO play. This guy's the expert. He knows better. All you can F off.
Stay tuned. We're going to wrap up this story and tell you how to apply this lesson to your business right after this.
Brought to you by the Least Full of Shit Marketers Association of America. Yes, that's a low bar, but we clear it mightily. We're also the largest pay-per-performance branding group in North America, and that part's for reals. If you're looking for advertising advice geared towards local owner-operated companies, this is your podcast. And now you can pick the brains of these advertising geniuses over lunch without having to pay for lunch or even leave your office. We're talking 90 minutes of straight answers to all your burning questions about lead generation, customer acquisition, mass media branding, how to get off the paper crack treadmill, anything you want. And the only coin required is candor. Because we can't give no bullshit advice without basing it off no BS data on your company, competitive landscape, operations, and all that jazz. We send you a pre-Zoom questionnaire. You fill it out candidly, and boom, Bob's your uncle. You're in like Flynn, and we'll be frank as fuck in giving you the straight scoop on all the advertising and business growth questions you always wanted to know, but were too afraid to ask. You'll also get our no pitching and no bitching guarantee. No pitching means we won't pitch you or try to sell you in any way. If you want more after 90 minutes, you'll have to ask. And no bitching means if you don't think the meeting was worth your 90 minutes, we'll send you $100. Consider it us picking up the tab for lunch and putting our money where our mouth is. Sound like a not so full of shit offer? Well, that is what we're known for. Take us up on it at empirebuildersprogram.com.
Let's pick up our story where we left off, and trust me, you haven't missed a thing.
This guy's the expert. He knows better. All you can F off. You know,
Yeah.
It's kind of like people, and we see this in advertising all the time. People hire, they'll go out and they'll spend all this time and all this money. They'll find who they think is an unbelievable advertising executive, great copywriter, someone like yourself and myself. Copywriting is the words. And then we'll sit there and go, gee, you know, I don't know about this and I don't know about that. And it's kind of like,
rewrote the ad a little bit.
Yeah. And they don't even realize half the time the little bit of the rewrite is taking out of the magic. And I get why people feel like they can judge ads because they've grown up their whole life seeing advertising. So I know what advertising works, right? Well, you know what, Dave, I'm going to share a little secret with you. I haven't told anybody this. I've lived my whole life in a house with indoor plumbing.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make me a plumber.
What?
Does not make me a plumber. I don't really should even have an opinion on what's busted if the plumbing is broken. I'm not a plumber, even though I use it every day. Just because someone watches advertising or hears advertising or think they know what works does not make them an advertising executive. And in fact, some of our best, most successful ads are ones that we've actually had to work really hard to convince the client to run. And in fact, 9 times out of 10, that's when we're sitting there, we go, oh God, I know this is gold because everybody's resisting.
And sometimes it's about just getting noticed, right? If you're in an unsexy business, you know, plumbing, you brought up plumbing. It's like, there's not a whole lot you can do as a plumber to make somebody need you today. Right? Nobody's going to respond, or I'll say very few people are going to respond to some kind of a sale price on fixing clogged toilets because not many of us have one today.
Yeah.
You're always better off just doing something that's going to get you noticed and remembered. You're a plumber, you're a licensed plumber. Well, I know you can fix a plumbing problem. I don't need to know that it's drain specific.
I just want the water to go down the hole.
That's right. And I want it to come out the faucet. I want it to come out where it's supposed to come out and go away where it's supposed to go away.
It's supposed to go away.
That's it.
Hole, not up the hole.
And in between those two things failing, I don't really need you.
And this brings up something else. When you hire an expert, most of what works really well in marketing is counterintuitive. And if I hire an expert and that expert only gives me things that make sense, they're probably actually not an expert. What makes them an expert is they deliver something that seems counterintuitive. The moment you go, geez, I don't know about that, means you've actually hired an expert. And guess what? Do what they're telling you to do. Give them freedom and autonomy to do what you've hired them to do. And then if they don't get the results, then you fire them. But what you do is you give them the autonomy to do what they do. Be like HBO. No committees, no focus groups, complete autonomy to the expert.
Do you know, Stephen, how did HBO learn this lesson?
I don't know whether it's always been this way. I didn't. Yeah, that's a great question. And when I was doing the research, I didn't kind of have that question in my mind. It just, what jumped out at me was this massive success that this company has in terms of Emmy nominations and growing from nothing to $2 billion in their time and changing the industry and going, oh my God, no focus groups, no committees. Isn't that really interesting? And I just went there.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. And my guess is that companies like Netflix have in their own way copied this strategy, right? And in the early days, it was, hey, let's find the things that people want to watch and show them to them.
Right.
And then they started getting into their own production. And I think they take a fairly similar approach for the most part, because the things that they are producing themselves are typically things people end up enjoying watching.
Yeah, very much so. And again, a lot of this is counterintuitive. And really what it means is, trust the expert. Don't ask your mom. Don't ask your neighbor. Don't ask people in your industry. Hire an expert. Trust the expert. Get rid of the committees. Watch McTorbay's video.
Amen. Find an expert and trust them.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. Please share us, subscribe on your favorite podcast app, and leave us a big, fat, juicy 5-star rating and review at Apple Podcasts. And if you'd like to schedule your own 90-minute empire building session, you can do it at empirebuildingprogram.com.